Hi, Tracey. So thank you so much for sparing time today for this interview, because I appreciate that you're a busy lady. And this is in fact going to be a series of videos. This is one of 5, but I'm particularly excited about this one because it's about the immune system. And often when we think about strengthening our immune systems, then the first go-to thoughts are eating well, taking supplements, getting a good night's sleep. But how many of us realize that the way that we breathe every single day is also having an impact on our immune systems? So it's for that very reason that thankfully we have you, Tracey, to be able to help to answer that question. So before we go on with the questions, can you just explain to us, because you're a functional breathwork instructor, just give us an explanation, a summary of what that means.
Thank you, Rachel. It's lovely to be with you today. So a functional breathwork instructor essentially means that I work with blood chemistry as well as movement of the body. So we look at the carbon dioxide and oxygen levels in the blood, and then we look at how the body moves when we breathe. So from the upper airway muscles right down to the diaphragm being our main breathing muscle, and the expansion around the ribs and the body, and getting people into healthy breathing techniques or patterns that will impact on their health.
And so within that, I know that within your teaching, it's really important to be breathing through your nose. It's also very apparent that a lot of people breathe through their mouths. So why is it so important why is nasal breathing so important?
Well, nasal breathing is essential. And I will say at the outset, the mouth really is for speaking, eating, drinking, and for short spurts of high intensity exercise. The rest of the time, 24/7, we should be breathing through our nose. And although we often default to the mouth because it feels like an easier option, we actually get 20% better ventilation when we breathe through our nose. But crucially, if we look at the science behind it, we actually have a molecule that is only produced in the sinus cavity, not in the mouth. And this molecule is called nitric oxide. And when we inhale, nitric oxide actually enables the blood vessels to open and ensures more oxygen-rich blood to the lungs. So it acts as a vasodilator. This does not happen in the mouth. And often problems start because people overbreathe, mouth breathing, hyperventilation, and at night, snoring, being the same version of dysfunctional breathing. And what ends up happening is we ingest impure air full of bacteria. The nose actually has an antibacterial facility. So it purifies the air, it warms it before it enters the lungs. Whereas if it's through the mouth, none of that happens. And most importantly, I think if you are training, doing any kind of exercise, mouth breathing can actually instigate exercise-induced asthma. So working with my clients, I really try and encourage them to practice nasal breathing, which can be challenging if you've been a mouth breather all your life. And then we have additional tools to help support that process.
Oh, so even in the way that you're breathing could even be bringing on asthma, or be part of creating.
Yeah, exercise-induced asthma, though, it's different to asthma. If you've had asthma since most people have had asthma, or you have it all your life, you learn to live with it and you use a pump. With my clients that struggle with their asthma, what we found is that when they start employing nasal breathing, they start to need that pump a lot less. So it's not a replacement for their medication, but actually what we are doing is retraining the respiratory muscles and the body to breathe efficiently and economically. So therefore you don't need that additional support as much as you may have in the past.
Yeah, amazing. And so just going back to you mentioning that when you're breathing through your nose, that from what you said, that because the molecule actually expands the blood vessels, so you're able to absorb more oxygen, and then also the nose acting like a filter. So how else is it that breathing through your nose can help to improve your immunity?
Well, with nasal breathing, if you employ nasal breathing 24 hours a day over mouth breathing, you are actually able to improve your immunity. So essentially, you're not going to reduce being sick at all. But if you did get some kind of infection, because the nose is being used in the right way, the recovery after illness tends to be shorter, and also the body is more primed to fight infection. And essentially, you know, as we're going into winter now in the Northern Hemisphere, colds, flus, sniffles, you know, even COVID as such, it doesn't eliminate getting sick, but we are enabling our body to fight infection because we're using the body the way it was supposed to be used. And as I mentioned before, it's about strengthening these respiratory muscles, which is not just, you know, your upper airway tract, your upper chest, your intercostal muscles around the thorax, the back, and the diaphragm. So it's a whole system that engages. So you using the nose along with diaphragmatic activation with a soft, light, slow, deep style of breathing. That is essentially what correct breathing is. Not over breathing, not hyperventilating, not yawning and sighing during the day or snoring at night. And it may sound really simplistic, but with practice of specific exercises, we are able to retrain the body to breathe efficiently, and that will improve immunity in the long run.
That's it. So from what you said, you're filtering the air, so you're stopping as much of the bad stuff getting in as possible. You're making sure that you're well oxygenated so that your body can function really well. And then also just because if you're breathing through your nose, then you're warming the air slightly as well, aren't you? So like you mentioned colds, that a cold's called a cold because those viruses thrive in a colder environment. So if you're breathing through your mouth, you're getting colder air into your lungs, aren't you? So yeah, by breathing through your nose, you're pre-warming it before it's going in as well. And because the way that you breathe influences your nervous system. So
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
When we take a breath in, essentially that's like a stressor to the body. So the inhale is the stressor and the exhale is the relaxer. So getting your body to breathe slower and to exhale longer, almost as a default, that will help improve your breathing rate. It will also mean that you're not going to overbreathe. So by breathing less, but breathing deep into the base of the lungs, using the diaphragm, you are actually taking in fuller breaths, but fewer. And the little alveoli sacs in the lungs, they look like little anemones, and that's where the oxygen exchange happens. They will activate because the lungs are being used in the way they're supposed to. Because so many of us breathe upper chest only. And that is where all the problems start. Tension in the upper chest, neck, shoulders, back, even postural issues, spinal stabilization, and chronic pelvic floor pain is all caused by dysfunctional breathing. So it's so much more than immunity, but it's a great place to start. And encouraging children as well to breathe strictly through the nose is essential because that helps with their development, spatial awareness, focus and concentration as well.
Wow, so much, just all on a breath. And I know some of those areas we're definitely going to cover in future interviews in a bit more depth as well. So yeah, more to come on that note. So through watching this video, if somebody's watching and just thinking, you know, I've you know, they're aware that they breathe through their mouth because you just can't breathe through the nose. So how do you get out of that cycle if the reason why you're breathing through your mouth is because you really struggle to breathe through your nose? And
it's a great question because it's a very common issue. You know, you can have congestion in the nose for a number of reasons. One could be, for example, structural issues in the skull, deviated septum. Perhaps you've had multiple surgeries, and that really can affect the breathing patterns, as well as, I would say, unnecessary dental work, because there's a lot of cosmetic dentistry now where teeth are actually removed for
Mm.
a more beautiful smile. But sometimes if the teeth that are not supposed to be removed are removed, that can also impact on the airway tract, which impacts sleep. So the easiest way to actually try to clear the nose is through breath hold, which sounds so counterintuitive.
Mm.
And I know we're going to include a link. It's to a YouTube video, and it's for a nose unblocking exercise. And it will temporarily, using breath hold and movement of the head, reduce congestion in the sinus cavity. With regular practice, as well as employing nasal breathing and practicing functional breathing exercises, you can literally eliminate congestion in the nose. So it's not to say avoid medication, but what I would say is it's absolutely essential to explore these options, because you'll be amazed what the body is capable of if you employ these practices correctly.
I'm sure that the link will be really helpful as well, to just like you say, just to start decongesting and start clearing the nasal passages so that they can start to breathe better. The one thought that springs to mind though is how much practice, or how long, or does it mean doing hours of practice in order to be able to help improve your breathing, or not?
Not at all. And I think this is where it sometimes surprises people, the simplicity of what these exercises are. The shortest exercise, could be 90 seconds. If we can just become much more self-aware, the starting point is realizing to breathe through your nose is going to be much better for your body. And when you are self-aware that you are actually mouth breathing, that's where the change starts. The exercises I teach in my courses are very specific to encourage slowing down the breath, diaphragmatic activation. And with practice, a few minutes a day can make a huge difference. And integration seems to be a real issue for us with our busy lives. So I say to my clients, you can do the exercises while you make a cup of tea and wait for the kettle to boil, when you're walking the dog, when you are driving, when you are about to go to sleep at night. You can actually just meld it into your lifestyle. And so eventually they become habits, which is then the body starting to perform the way it should do without us actively having to think about it.
And like I said, that's the really helpful bit, isn't it? It doesn't take that long. So mentally, it's a lot easier as far as making that start. And then when you integrate it into a habit every single day, like you say, it just becomes routine, becomes commonplace. So yeah, fantastic. And so you mentioned your courses. Can you just let us know a little bit more about that and what you have to offer, as far as if people want to come and learn more?
So I run monthly breathwork programs, 3-week programs, and we work in small groups, and we have quite a supportive network. I also collaborate with other healthcare practitioners to support my clients if they need further support. I do a monthly taster session, which is 90 minutes on Zoom. And it's really, if you're curious to know more about how to breathe correctly, come along to a taster. You'll learn a lot. You'll get to do some of the exercises. And these essentially are tools for life. I also do live events, retreats. I work with corporates. I've done health and wellbeing festivals. And I'm very active on social media. So you'll find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. Perfect.
And what we'll do alongside this video is make sure that all of those links are available so that people can just click and go and find out more about you as well, which I'm sure a lot of people will do off the back of learning what we have on this short interview. So thank you so much, Tracey, for sparing your time. Like I say, we'll make sure that all of the information is available for people so that they can find out more. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.